That's what it is to be American. We're always the rebel opposition. We're always outnumbered. We're always hated. We're also feared and respected. I wouldn't have things any other way. I'm having a good time.
Hello, evening, and welcome to the Greene Tavern. I'm one of your hosts, Kevbot. Tonight, I'm joined by our other co-host, John Havner. We've got Kaiser and we've got Totally Brandon on with us tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And our guest tonight really doesn't need much of an introduction, but we have John Doyle. Mr. Doyle, thank you so much for hopping on with us tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the introduction that I don't need an introduction. That is a tremendous compliment. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Kaiser, would you like to get us started tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, I mean, everyone knows this is literally the biggest news story for weeks now. No one can stop talking about it, but, we lost a great patriot on the 10th of September. I understand that you were fortunate enough to go to his memorial service. What were some of your overall thoughts on that and just how that went? Because there's been a lot of talk around it, mostly positive, some people detracting from it. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually really judging people who didn't go, who could have gone. Like, this was a completely out of nowhere tragedy. And so some people have work and other obligations, but I know a handful of people who just could have gone, who are, neats like myself, and just simply didn't because they didn't care to. And I think that's kind of despicable, frankly, because, when a guy like that gets assassinated for the reasons that he did, and we now have this like vacuum that we are facing as a movement, like, I don't know. I think it's really important to pay your respects, even if just attending a vigil. Like, if you can't get $1,000 last minute ticket to Phoenix, Arizona, that's fine. But I know people who aren't even attending vigils, and it's like, is this even real for you, or is this just like some, I don't know, pastime? But anyway, I do appreciate speaking to this audience about it now that I have attended the service, because I can kind of share my thoughts. And I wouldn't say this necessarily like on Twitter, just because I don't think it's, messaging that is helpful right now. However, because we're talking about it, and we can have an honest conversation about it. About 4 hours into it, I kind of realized what was going on, and it just pissed me off, frankly. Now, I'm not going to tell a grieving widow how she should run her memorial, and I'm certainly not going to disagree that it's probably how Charlie would have wanted it conducted, but just as somebody who was in the audience, it was just charismatic Christianity. You know, we're 4 hours into the worship music, the rock bands, people standing up doing that like hands up swaying thing that they do if you've ever been to a mega church. And again, you know, this is a spiritual awakening for a lot of people. I get that. However, I would like that to exist concurrently to what we all know needs to be done to these people, the people who incited this and who carried it out. And the only people who spoke at the service who seemed to understand that, aside from I'm sure the widow, were of course Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Stephen Miller. So did I want it to be like a total, you know, TDD kind of event? Like, no, but I wish there would have been a little bit more bite to it. That being said, you know, again, I concede it was a service, it was a memorial, but it was the memorial of a man who was assassinated for political reasons. And so I wish that it actually would have been a little bit more of a, you know, campaign rally. I saw some people were trying to criticize it, saying that it was even distasteful that they made it political at all. And again, you know, that's what Charlie would have wanted. Charlie would have wanted people out there literally signing up people to vote as they were. And, you know, I guess his walk with the Lord was more of that kind of like non-denom Christianity. So I get that I'm just, you know, being a little bit of a cynic, but um, I think that the base, and by the way, when they were doing like total Democrat death, when they were doing that, like when Stephen Miller was doing that, the applause from the audience, from the 80,000 people, was louder than it was when we were hearing more. Again, we're on like decade 4 or 5 of this like charismatic Christianity stuff, and people love that. I mean, why wouldn't you? Are you going to not like stand up and cheer when people talk about being like saved by Christ? Like, of course you are. But for this kind of context, it seemed to me, and maybe I was just hearing things, that people were more enthused to hear Stephen Miller say that like, you people are nothing, you build nothing, we're gonna like throw you all in jail forever. People are more excited about that, which does echo the experience I had when I went to a vigil. And again, it was led by well-meaning people, but the message was now is the time more than ever for forgiveness and dialogue. And then they opened it up for, you know, anybody who else wanted to speak. And I got right up there and I gave my 2 cents, and I accidentally Fed posted at the end. But I had that place like, you know, screaming, dude. Everybody was so excited. And it just goes to show that the base understands, like the base understands what needs to be done. These are not stupid people. I mean, you know, they might be normies, they might not know all the relevant facts or have done the reading, but they understand what time it is, and it's their representation, whether that's in media or politics, guiding the discussion. Those are the people who are cowards, and they have no concept of what time it is, much less any will to do anything about it. It's like a sheep watching a hyena be, or a sheep watching a lion be taken down by hyenas. Like, it doesn't understand what it just saw. All it knows is, oh gee, I hope that doesn't happen to me. Let's all just pray for a peaceful solution. And it maybe even goes as far as to say, well, freaking maybe if the lion didn't have to be a lion and it was just a sheep like us and just didn't cause any problems, then it would be okay. It's like, and that's what our leadership class is selected for, just like these like Ned Flanders types who just want to do nothing, are incapable of doing anything, probably too stupid to even understand what's going on. So that is not to say it's like a reflection of the service itself, but everywhere I'm looking, whether it's at TPUSA chapter meetings that I attend or vigils I attend, or, you know, just conversation with people who I know are well-meaning, they're good Christians and they're patriots. But again, all of that can coexist with what needs to happen. Like, you can love these people and you can forgive these people just as well while they're in jail or, you know, being entered into a legally, very legally commissioned noose.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. We just see far too many people that, for some reason, like it just does not seem real to them what is occurring. They just don't seem, either they do understand what's going on and they just kind of want to write it out, or they, I don't know. There's just, it just seems like there really is a large class of people who just do not want to escalate these things, even though in a lot of ways it would actually keep us safer if we can nip the bud on all of these Antifa terrorists, all of these people that are out there organizing already attacked an ICE facility today, so they're only emboldened by all of this. They're only going to grow more, get more well-funded, get stronger, honestly, as this goes. The quicker it's cut off and they're actually cracked down on, the safer the sheep will actually be. But that confrontation just seems to scare people. And the other thing that I also have seen a lot, especially like in our spheres where we tend to run in more of like the Christian nationalist, Christian dialogue over there, there's a lot of people who might get a lot of things, but they seem to almost want a Christian ghetto or a patriot ghetto or just like this dissident right. I just want to have like my own little space and screw the rest of the country. Everything else can burn as long as I have my Twitter followers, as long as I have my church, as long as I have this thing for myself, everything else is okay to go. And I actually don't like that you're escalating things, because now my little tiny fiefdom is threatened by you trying to have an actual nation. So I guess, what do you see the cause of that being? Why are there people that still seem to want to just stay in their own little sphere, own little thing, and not realizing that these people will eventually come for them too?
It's just cowardice, naivety, whatever. They're just naive. They literally just simply do not get it. I mean, I've been campaigning this for probably a year now. Like, there's like 10 people who get it, and like 9 of them are on Twitter, and then there's maybe like one other guy somewhere. And that's fine. Like, you don't have to get it, but so many of these people have been allowed to, for whatever reason, develop some kind of power or influence in these spheres, and then they misdirect and they mislead a lot of otherwise, good people who could be competent and helpful. And I don't know what the solution is to that, especially in such a decentralized kind of like, social media economy, marketplace of ideas. It was almost better in some sense back in the day when you had outlets that could maintain an editorial standard. It was certainly more intelligent content. It may have been wrong, but it was more intelligent. Whereas now we have like actually the exact opposite, where we are somehow more correct and more retarded at the same time, which I think is a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think they're just cowards. It's always easy to rationalize not doing something, sitting back. It's actually based to like let everyone take over, and I get to do the "I told you so" dance or whatever, because I have my like based wholesome like trad compound or whatever. And I don't know, you just got to write these people off, man. You just got to give yourself permission to not like, we're all going to get killed by troons or something. Like, you don't want your like dying breaths to be like, "Oh, I wish I would have spent more time arguing with like, what is it, gigabase dad on Twitter," or something. Like, these people are just not helpful. You just gotta, move on to the next.
Well,
If I could, I do think that you actually. Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Kaiser.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that you did actually get it pretty well. And it's a line that I've shamelessly stolen and put into as many tweets as I can, which is proximity to patriots.
Real.
A lot of these people just do not have any kind of organization. They don't really interact with anyone except online. But once you're actually like around like a bunch of guys who kind of get it, you start to get it more. You also are then able to like coordinate, organize. It's able to translate these online things more into reality, because now you see other people around you who do get it, who have an understanding of where things should go, who can throw ideas out there, where you can have iron sharpening iron between each other and actually start to make some progress as well, even in your own local area.
Yeah, I think it's literally all it takes. Because it's like anything you do, whether it's hitting the gym or even finding a church, like, people, again, to defer taking action, like to tell themselves that they must, at the drawing board, devise the 100% perfect plan to, have a 2% edge in like net muscle mass over the next guy. Or same thing with martial arts. Like, guys will get super autistic about like whether they're going to do kickboxing or what's the one like Israeli one, like Krav Maga, or is that that's just Marines or something, right?
Isn't it jujitsu?
I don't know if the Israelis do that. I mean, they may, but
That was a joke.
oh, Yeah, see, I'm unironically a philo-Semite, so stuff like that just, runs off me
fair.
like rainwater.
I'm sorry.
But it's the same thing. It's like, if you're a guy in the general population and you have any kind of like grappling or striking training, you're probably going to be okay. But, guys will sit back and try to like autistically analyze the perfect freaking martial art just to avoid getting, some kind of fighting gym and getting their ass kicked a little bit. And so it's the same thing with like proximity to patriots. Like guys will hit me up and they'll be like, how do I get involved? Well, what's like the perfect thing for me to do? Here's my exact skill tree. Here are my like New Vegas stats or whatever. It's like, dude, literally just go get in proximity to patriots. And whether you are 12 years old or 35 years old, if you get the boys together, like they're going to be scheming or they're going to start scheming. Like guys are going to be working on something. And you have to bring something to the table as well, too. Like, this is not like some sort of, I don't know, inclusive like social club, I guess. I don't know. Like if you're a Spurg or you're a loser, like there are plenty of places on the right for those kinds of guys to hang out. But one thing I enjoy about the kinds of circles that we tend to run in is they're actually like very exclusive. Like the Old Glory Club conference, for example, where they're charging like what, $700 a ticket. That tends to exclude a certain type of person. And as a result, you have like the highest quality people all gathered together in a lodge for a weekend. Just to name one instance. So yeah, it's that simple, honestly. Like, giving advice to a mass audience, I don't really like ever because people's circumstances are so unique. But in terms of general advice, which obviously is going to be a little bit more watered down, yeah, just whatever spurgy or low quality behaviors you have, rid yourselves of those, develop high quality habits and behaviors, and then just get in proximity to patriots, and it'll be like a fish in water. Like that's how things happen. That's how things have always happened.
I don't want to walk the conversation back too much, but just to kind of hit on something that we were talking about earlier with the vigils and everything else, and it being more of a call for peace and unity and less of a call for action. I really don't think that's what Charlie would have wanted. I mean, very recently before he was assassinated, he was talking about using the death of Irina on the train over here in Charlotte for political purposes. And so for people to say that, well, we shouldn't make this political, or we shouldn't do anything about this, we should just mourn, we should come together, it's like that's not what he would have wanted. Like he knew what time it was, he understood what was going on and how to use this.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The only reason I say that is because I just want to avoid the implication of, it's seeming like I'm attacking a mourning widow with like, the event should have been XYZ, but I think that is absolutely correct. And we know that, again, judging by the tweets that he put out. And, for better or worse, there's nothing more that Charlie Kirk wanted to do than advance the cause of Donald Trump's Republican Party. And you can cringe at that because it's like, oh, GOP. But like the GOP now is obviously different than the GOP even 5 years ago. And Charlie worked, I don't know, probably 100 hours a week, maybe even more, at making sure the GOP was a well-oiled machine in alignment with Trump's cause and the patriot cause. And I mean, obviously that's why they killed him. But the idea that, yeah, he would be like put off by registering voters or calling for like mass arrests of like leftists at his own memorial, his own vigil, like that's nonsense. If anything, he probably would have wanted it to be taken further, especially if he knew what ended up happening. If he could look down on us and give us some kind of message as to how he wanted his memorial to be, like, yeah, he'd probably go like TDD mode.
Well, and he had the right idea. And what you're talking about with using the GOP, like that's something that it took me a long time to realize. I was late to this, but like the answer is not like a third party. It's not the Tea Party. It's not the Libertarian Party. It's not some like Uber-based patriot party that has 5 people in it. It's you take the imperfect juggernaut that is the GOP, and you slowly turn that ship around and point it at the enemy. That's how you win.
Yes. Yeah, that was also a realization I came to a few years ago after just kind of like hearing about some of these very ascendant and massive like right-wing youth movements like 100 years ago in America, where they would hold these rallies in cities and they would have sometimes tens of thousands of young guys like marching for, whatever far right cause. And you just kind of hear that and it's like, okay, I've got guys who are going to like IRL events where like 15 people show up to hold signs that say like, Jews will not replace us or whatever. In 2025, they're still doing this, and they're like, look at this is a movement. My Hitler edit got 1,000 likes as a certain government, what is it? Gubernatorial candidate in California said. And so you just kind of realize that like this like whole massive, and it's a very liberal coded idea to this idea that if we get like the people all on board with the ideas, then we win. It's just like not how that works. If you want to be successful in American politics, for better or worse, you're going to have to do it through one of the two parties. We have a two-party system. Libertarians are retards. Green Party are retards. I mean, everybody knows this. And so the question is, how are you going to do that? Are you going to somehow construct a better juggernaut than the GOP that's actually like based? Like, no, obviously not. Moreover, you don't have the time to do that. Boomers are going to die off, as I mentioned actually in my OGC speech a year ago. And so our window's closing there unless we can like do serious damage to the Democrat Party, which, you know, again, the only party that has the arsenal to do that. They're not using it, but they have that arsenal is the Republican Party. And honestly, it's a lot less work to infiltrate and get involved in the Republican Party than it would be to build your own party that could actually like challenge the Democrat Party. It's significantly less work. Your like ROI in terms of like impact is far better suited that way. We've seen it done. We know guys who are doing it. And again, it gets back to the whole like deference thing where it's easier to sit back and be like, I'm scheming, I'm jerking off, and I'm playing video games, and I'm working my stupid fucking job, but I'm scheming. And then one day I'm going to have the based party and we're going to take over the country and everything is going to go exactly the way I want it. And it's like, okay, dude, you're just like a loser. You're just not serious.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I think that one of the other things that has really just stood out to me again in your last video, when you just talked about, I knew this was real when I had that Antifa LARPer, but they were still coming up to me with a gun after a drag show. And it really just came down to, am I going to have to see if I can win a quick draw right now in order to walk away from this?
Yeah, so I tweeted, I alluded to that story, but I didn't want to tell the story because I don't condone this behavior because it was reckless. That being said, it was fucking awesome, and I would do it 100 times in a second. Like, basically, yeah, what happened was this like Antifa LARP fag was following me back to my car with his stupid like black block LARP gear and his stupid like LARP gun. And I was with a small group of guys, maybe like 2 or 3 other guys, and they just kind of like, we were all walking and the guy next to me kind of turned his head about 15 degrees in my direction and just said like, oh, we're being followed, by the way. And I turned around and I see this like, 5'10", and I'm not the tallest guy in the world, but there's a certain like physiognomy for the Antifa LARPer where they are like very skinny and like lanky and wait, what the heck? Sorry, I'm getting a bizarre text message right now. Anyway, you dude, literally, I'm getting the call. They're just like this very unhealthy looking people. They're very pale. They're very like just skinny. They're not even like skinny fat, though that does exist. They're just always just like these little skeletons. And so I had this like very primal sense of offense where I'm like being stalked. I'm literally being like preyed upon by this like I don't want to use language that's going to get me in too much trouble. And so I just like walked right up to him and I got in his face. Like, you could have fit like maybe 2 hand lengths between us. And I just said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? You following me to that car. What the fuck are you going to do? You going to shoot me? Shoot me right here, faggot. Like, do what you're going to do. And I had I had 2 pistols on me. I had my full size Beretta, my appendix, and I had a Beretta 84. It's a Cheetah. I actually really like those guns. It's a little 380, and that was in my my Blazer. And I just kind of had this moment where it was like, dude, because I was already so pissed off because the whole day, and again, I don't endorse this. I'm not saying do this. This was reckless, but at the same time, like, I'm a man. I'm not gonna like walk to my car with my tail between my legs as like this like little bitch gets to like feel like he has power over me. And yeah, so I did what I did. I don't care. It was awesome. It was actually one of the most exciting moments of my life, and I would do it again without a second's hesitation. So anyway, I'm in this guy's face, and we're talking, and he's not saying a word to me because that's part of it for them. They have to be like quiet and mysterious. But yeah, it was just sort of this moment where I'd spent the whole day being told by Dallas police that they are going to stand there and protect this literal gay nightclub as they bring young children into it to have them dance around with transvestite strippers. And all of the Christians outside and myself are just going to have to like take it. And it's not even that, we can't go in there and break up the band. Like we can't even get too close to them. We can't make them feel unwelcome. We can't use, crass or intimidating language. Like we literally were being gate kept and they were being protected. And not only they were being protected, but the Antifa LARPers were being protected as well. So the sort of Oreo or the I don't know, the pyramid or whatever you want to call it was furthest back, gay bar. In front of that, young children. In front of that, black bloc armed Antifa LARPers. And then in front of that, Dallas police, all facing our direction. And we were just by ourselves. And that was debasing. I mean, I don't know if I'd experienced so much just like anger and feeling of just like, total violation than I did that whole day. So then finally, yeah, the culmination of that, so I'm getting gang stalked back to my car. And so, yeah, I got in the guy's face and I was just, what do you want to, I wasn't saying like, I wasn't escalating the situation aside from the fact that I was obviously escalating the situation. But even then, who's to say? How do I know that this guy's not going to follow me back to my car, write down my license plate, find out where I live and come kill me? How do I know that guy's not just going to put one in the back of my head when I get, in between my car and the next car? I don't know. So I go and yeah, we have our moment. I just asked him, I was like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And that's all it took. Just what do you want to do? And yeah, there was this moment where it became very real. And I kind of swore off those events because, I'm not looking for a fight, but it's not worth it for the clicks. You go to those events, you get your footage, and we were using that to get on like Tucker and try to get that issue more discussed, more into people's living rooms, which, if you're following politics at all, we've known about those kinds of events since 2018, 2019. But at the time, Americans weren't talking about it the way they were after that because of the work we did. But there are still people who go to events like that today, trying to get their clips, trying to like epically own these people. And I've tried to tell them, it's like, look, dude, this is not 2016 anymore. This is not age Skrillex and Jigglypuff. Like these people are freaks and they will kill you. And they obviously are willing to do that because they get the freaking upvotes for it. These are people with no purpose in their lives. They want the upvotes. They want to be, martyrs for the cause. And it's just not worth it. There are too many otherwise effective and high quality people who are in proximity to these anti-patriots. And you just really don't want to do that. It's not a game. It's not funny. And I get it. It's like kind of, it sucks that we can't be where we want to be and exercise our rights because there's this like lingering threat of like death by troon. However, we are trying to understand the current dynamic and we have to adjust ourselves accordingly. So in the meantime, until Vance and Miller and Trump like get rid of these people forever, we do have to be a little bit smarter with stuff like that. But yeah, that's what it comes down to, man. Just realizing what time it is, the situation that we're in. It's not a game. It's very real. And look at what they did to Charlie Kirk and, the socialism sucks guy. And they put a deer round in his neck. So yeah, these people are not messing around.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience to that where when it really does come down to like, am I going to have to kill or be killed here? Is something that very few Americans actually experience in their day to day because they are a lot more comfortable. But it is something that our ancestors dealt with on a daily basis. You read about the history of Jamestown, the Pilgrims, what we did during colonization, what it was like to live during the King Philip's War. All of this time, like America was not a very safe place. And it is what made us the people that we were, the fact that we could actually survive that almost in kind of like a survival of the fittest, like who can actually survive living around, savages and fighting the British and all of these things. And what came out was the people that we have. In a way, like experiences like that actually do help, where I've had it where I had urban Americans in my area that wanted to show up to my friend's house with guns over a dispute with a basketball game. And he knew they were coming. They had threatened to shoot up his house. He brings over all of his guys that know what they're doing. And we literally just had to like sit there as they try and argue with us. They're walking around with a Draco. Most of them just have like these little crappy like high points and Glocks and other things. I'm posted up by one window where I just am drawing a bead where they can't see me from where I'm at. But they like if I need to, I'm going to pull this trigger because I'm not going to let this guy kill me, my friends, over a basketball game, because he just so happened to be the only white guy that was living in this neighborhood for other reasons. But once you like actually experience that, you really start to understand that like these things are not a game. They are not a joke. There are actual consequences to these politics, to these decisions. It's something that I saw as well when I was in the military. Just after J6, there was they brought everyone in the military into these little conferences to discuss white hatred and white supremacy and how it was a threat to everything. And they had you sit down while they gave you a PowerPoint presentation and went over how this is the greatest threat to our country, to sovereignty, to liberty, all of that. Every single one, it was, here's this white supremacist organization, blah, blah, blah. It was just that, tying into literally the Proud Boys were up there, which anyone who knows that, that's like a joke that they would be on that list. Like there was plenty of organizations that just did not belong and were. Beyond that, just COVID, all of these other things where it's like, when you actually experience what the government is doing and you actually have the cognition to understand, hey, these are downstream of who got elected, of who's in power, of who's in charge, and they don't have to be like that. And if someone else is in, even if he's not all the way there, is a lot better for my day-to-day life than what is going on. And it can only get worse if the other side is winning. And so I just want to go a little bit more just on like, is there a way to get people to understand that this is real without having to go through the experiences where you are, standing down someone with a gun?
I don't really think well, we don't want that to happen, but I know that I'm just going to be echoing points I made in that video, but they're still, it's obviously related. I think that the window of like getting it is closed, and I'm perfectly content with that. Like I can amnesty anyone that, I've stepped on their toes or vice versa. Like any well-meaning patriot, I'm more than happy to ally with. I have no ill will. Frankly, I don't care enough about people who aren't my friends to even like have that kind of animosity. If someone's content sucks, it's like, who cares? My content probably sucks too. It's like, it doesn't matter, dude. Like we are involved in this because we want quality of life gains. Like that's all that matters. It's fun. We have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun, especially on Twitter, but that can all go away, and still what ultimately matters is the cause and moving the ball down the field. So it's kind of like, Anna Kasparian, like she was like a libtard forever. And then finally she literally had to get mugged at gunpoint to be like, maybe this doesn't freaking work. And it's like, I'm glad you realized that, but some people weren't so lucky. Some people actually just got shot in the fucking head and killed and didn't make it home for Christmas because people like you chose to be naive and just like live in your stupid fantasy world. And now it happened to you, and now we're supposed to like embrace you and do trust falls and sing Kumbaya. Like, wow, now you get it. Like, dude, these things should be so much more evident than that. And so I don't know, man. A lot of it is just like natural maturation. Like you kind of just grow out of a lot of stupid ideas that you possessed when you were a teenager. I know I've done it. I know everyone else has done it. But the sort of thing that sucks with that is that it is impossible to communicate that to younger guys, because even if you remember, like I remember being told as a 18, 19-year-old, like, okay, XYZ, and thinking like, yeah, all right. And now I'm 25 and I'm telling guys, who are 18, 19, I'm coming up and I'm like, hey man, XYZ. And they're like, yeah, all right. And so there's nothing you can do except just wait it out, and they'll grow out of it, naturally. Now, do we have that amount of time? I don't know. But in terms of like taking guys who, I guess we know, or people we know, and trying to like help them get it. If someone is like directionally correct, you can certainly kind of like Sherpa them along. But in terms of people who at this point like still are just like completely out of touch, I don't have the time. And maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I'm just rationalizing my own impatience with them, but I just don't think it's worth it. Like, do you think that there's a person out there who could be helpful and who is smart, who is not at least like sympathetic to what time it is? Like, I can't imagine that person existing. You'd have to be like completely retarded to not at least sympathize with the idea that I love Jesus, I love America, and liberals are crazy. So I don't know.
I think it's more so that there are people that are sympathetic, and I think Charlie Kirk's assassination brought a lot of people who were sympathetic, but the most that they were willing to really do was vote, or just maybe talk a couple times at something. Now they actually do want to do something, and we've seen a lot of motivation where, like, for example, we are just getting bombarded with membership applications now. people who otherwise have been holding it off, hadn't really thought about it. Once this happens, they're willing to actually do something now. So it's less so the idea that like, oh, there's just this like moderate fence sitter who's been involved the whole time but hasn't gotten in. Now all of a sudden they're super based and red pilled and whatever you want to call it. But it's more so that there's all these people that might have been sympathetic, might have had some of these ideas, might not have really done much. But I think those are the people that you can actually reach with this, where we can talk about that. And that's what we're actually, I would say you should be looking to do, is getting people who otherwise are comfortable just kind of sitting around and letting other people take action to actually now take action.
Yeah, I mean, to that, I would only say, I just kind of circling back to my disaffection with the leadership class, whether you're at the macro level or the micro level with even, again, not to throw them under the bus, but the chapters, like the turning point chapters, like, there were people who were showing up to this meeting I attended, and, we kind of took like an inventory, and, it was my first time. And so all these new people were showing up, like you said, to get involved. They realized like, okay, something's got to be done. And then unfortunately, they are inherited by the incumbent class of people who are the people who just simply don't get it. I mean, certainly not to the level where they should be in charge of anything. Even something as trivial as a campus chapter, it's just, which does matter. It actually does matter a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little black pilled, just poquito, it's not crazy, but just, the reaction to this and to the loss in general, it's a huge setback. And I'm telling myself that the reason it happened is because they're so backed into a corner right now, which they are, but that can exist in perfect compatibility with how bad that is as just a happening, the last 12 days or so.
Yeah.
Well, what I don't understand is,
oh, go ahead.
What I don't understand is if this hasn't been a wake up call for the normies, like I don't know what can, other than like you said, like other than something like Anna Kasparian getting mugged herself. Like for the normies, even like right coded, more conservative normies, there's still some of them that don't get it. Like I've got friends that don't get it. I've got family that don't get it. Maybe they get it a little bit, but then they just, they go back to work or their phone or whatever else, and it just kind of just doesn't really make a dent. And that's what worries me.
If I could, as well, just talking to the black pilling, I have not been black pilled at all. And I'm generally a pretty cheerful, optimistic guy in general, but I've honestly, just from having been in Old Glory Club in these specific circles where, yes, we are a tiny fraction of what TPUSA has in terms of membership, money, all of these things, but the quality of the average person is so much greater. And it's like, you understand now why, for example, if you're going to like a biblical story, why Gideon went in with 300 guys instead of 2,000. I think you said it best, where you don't need the masses. You don't need this massive group of people. You need 100,000 young, motivated, patriotic men who can put themselves into the correct positions that will then get the masses to actually do something. You don't need to, there's no upswelling of the people. History is a top-down flow. It is not bottom-up. And so I think when you understand as well just the impact that you have had to sway people to do more, to be in these positions, like just my background, like the only reason I'm even here is because I saw Why America Died and How We Bring America Back. One of your greatest 2-part series, highly recommended to anyone. If you have not seen it, watch it. It's evergreen. It's perfect. It always applies. But once you just get that you don't need everyone on board, you don't need all of the people doing the right thing. You need a handful of people that can actually position themselves. I think that when you have that perspective, that helps alleviate a lot of the issue that you have of seeing just how stupid and impossible some people can be.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I suppose I would only say that the purpose of like the organizations are just different. Like, OGC is what some might say like our, elite human capital. Turning Point is supposed to be a place for like normies to understand that they like love their country and that also that like the liberals are crazy. And it just created like a sort of sense of energy that kept the right, like, at least in the last year, like dominant and cool, and it was healthy. It was instrumental in returning the dynamic of like patriotism to just being like a normal opinion that you can express without fear, which 5 years ago was not the case. And I think that was because of Turning Point, Charlie going to these campuses, owning libs, clips going viral. It was fun. He's throwing hats out. Like, that's just something that is not going to be so easily replaced. I know they're doing tours with like other, podcasters and stuff, and I wish them well, but Charlie truly, and I know you're not trying to like, minimize the loss or anything. I know that's not the point, but I would only say, I guess to kind of answer that it wasn't just the, organization itself. It was convincing donors to give money to TP Action, the political arm of Turning Point USA, and then using that to forward like the cause of Donald Trump, etc. I mean, he just the reason I'm blackpilled isn't because I'm like, oh no, who's going to own the libs now? It's just like this guy did every job that you would want someone in politics to be doing, and he did it for patriots, and he did it in terms of like skill or competence at like the 90th percentile at least. I mean, the guy was just so unbelievably good at everything from debating to fundraising to consulting to wielding influence over senators, literally the president. He was on Charlie's name was on a list of 3 people who Trump listened to. The other one is his son, and then the third one is a media personality. And frankly, Charlie was the best name on that list, and now he's gone. So that's kind of why I'm blackpilled. Short term, I think that there's some cause to be optimistic. We are racking up a lot of wins, and hopefully this momentum and this grief can translate into something that really cripples the left. But in the long term, like 18 months out, without Charlie, I'm really just worried about the possibility of the right healing itself, so to speak, in some sense, to the way that it existed in the pre-Trump era, especially within the media sphere. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to blackpill
So
too
I
much
think
because I'm hoping that I'm hoping there's somebody waiting in the wings. Like we didn't see JD coming, at least I didn't. And to your point, Charlie's a large part of the reason why JD is where he is now. But like I didn't see him coming, 2-3 years ago, and so I'm trying to stay white pilled on that. I'm trying to stay hopeful on that there is somebody out there that can, if not fill Charlie's shoes, at least come alongside of where he was. But we just don't know it. He's not been made clear to us yet.
I think also, especially when you just factor in that ultimately, like, I think it's without a doubt that God is on our side in this whole thing. God ultimately did allow Charlie Kirk to be taken from us now. And there's something to be said about when a man is martyred like that, it can still carry forward, even where he can't be there. He's not the voice there. He's not going to be moving anything further. I still think that just the fact that this happened, yes, there are so many people who still don't get it. There's so many people who don't understand things, but I love to just go to American history because it is incredible. But there was a man, Dr. Joseph Warren at Bunker Hill, who was integral to the trio, the people that were at Boston that were really leading a lot of the charge, where Joseph Warren dies at Bunker Hill before the Declaration of Independence is ever made. He was one of Sam Adams, John Hancock, all of these guys that were there. He was one of their top guys, that he was integral to this group. And his death, before we even got independence passed, before we really had gotten it, where so many people still didn't understand what time it was, even as patriots are fighting and dying for our national sovereignty, where they're still trying to make peace. When you look at it from that perspective, it looks like, okay, yeah, we're just losing our top guys, and they're still arguing about whether or not we should actually make another strongly worded letter to say, hey, please give us lower taxes. Or do we actually just bite this bullet and say, hey, we are our own nation now? There's something to be said about, yes, in the moment that we're in, it is a devastating loss. And where there is, in the meantime, in the future, it seems like there's nobody who can replace it, and there probably isn't. But when you understand that we do have God on our side, when this is just a part of a greater story that he is unfolding before us, I think there's always cause to be optimistic there. That's just my view on it.
I think you're right. I think you're right. That's why hope is a virtue. Pray for me. Hope is a virtue, and I am struggling.
That's fair. Brandon, you had something you wanted to throw in?
Well, as a part of the conversation about how do we get people to get where we're at, we have just an absurd lack of motion in terms of 100 years of political peace. I think we have inertia that is making it difficult for the political class to understand the types of actions that need to be taken in order to preserve this country. So maybe following up from the conversation on how do we get our friends and neighbors to get it? Do you have any thoughts on effective ways that we can get our leaders to get it? Because as you mentioned earlier, there were some guys at the Remembrance that got it, Stephen Miller uh, and others, but many didn't. And I think you have a lot of patriots who, kind of go off in the comments section, do these ratios to try to get a message across. But are there more effective things that we should be doing? Are there better options?
I think that it does, I'm going to say the proximity to patriots thing again. Like, for example, a lot of the senators, like there's a couple senators who have become very good out of nowhere in just the last few years. And the reason for that is that they had guys working for them, whether, doing their comms or, consulting or just writing policy or something. And those guys are just like good guys, smart guys, well-meaning, good presentation, whatever. And they spend time around these guys and they earn their trust. And then, they talk more about the issues and they can display to them that the base does want this stuff. People do want this stuff. It's politically very popular. You can align yourself with Trump. You can raise your stock price a little bit. Because most politicians, they're spineless, which means that when the force is nefarious, they're going to, concede to that. But if the force is patriotic, well, don't write them off too quickly. Something like look at Big Mark, Marco Rubio. He's really come up and done a lot of good in the second Trump administration. No one would have seen that coming, especially myself. 3 years ago. So I think that in terms of getting involved, there's certainly an avenue there for guys to get involved and go work on the Hill or something for one of these, congressmen or even a senator or what have you. And you can earn their trust and kind of talk to them. And you got this even, arguably was Charlie's trajectory, where Charlie spent so much time building himself up and building up Turning Point USA. He didn't have time to really look into the issues beyond the like political slop content, when Dinesh D'Souza puts out a new book or listening to, whoever on the radio, you're just not going to follow the rabbit hole. I mean, you're just going to kind of like nod along and be congratulated for holding party opinions or whatever, but you're not going to pursue truth necessarily. And then, if you all of a sudden are in proximity to guys who have new ideas and it kind of clicks and this is interesting, and pretty soon you're asking for book recommendations and now you're red pilled, delayed onset, late bloomer, whatever you want to call it, but that can happen. And so I think it's just a matter of applying that pressure, in good faith on social media, certainly, but also just directly. I think has been very effective with people who otherwise would have just been like, rhinos whose names you probably weren't even familiar with, just because, one or two guys got into their proximity and earned their trust and were able to just kind of like, hey, what about this? What about this? Have you considered this? Well, I think it's actually maybe this. These people are spineless largely, but they're not evil. They're certainly more spineless than they are evil, but that can be fixed. We can fix that, I think.
Yeah, those are excellent thoughts. I think that when it comes to this proximity to patriots principle, uh, a lot of the men who are decision makers are actually more reachable than we think, even in terms. A few years back, I led a group to the Capitol and met with a lot of our state legislators, and many of them told us we don't get a lot of visits. So having patriots stop by makes a bigger impact than you think. Now, I think the essential thing is building long-term relationships that actually carry trust and not just being another log in the guest book. But a lot of that's more attainable than we think.
I think that is really interesting, especially that it's like bizarre that they actually get visitors, just because the amount of people that they represent is like sometimes staggering. How many people vote for congressional representatives when initially it was only supposed to be one representative for every few thousand people. Now it's hundreds of thousands. Um, but I think it just that is an avenue where you do have that, where you can send people up to actually just talk, and even that can actually do things. Like I remember there was, I think it was based Mike Lee. He had some advisor that was next to him, and he made some like Twitter post about like how we only like legal immigration, not illegal, or we like illegal immigration, we don't like illegal immigration. And his comments were just flooded with people that were saying, no, we don't want more legal immigration. And he was just in shock, because apparently like he had just been so isolated in these circles that he did not know that there had been so much sway and change against H-1B, against all of these things. And so at a minimum, that guy is going to Mike Lee and he's saying, hey, these guys are actually really upset, and they're not really buying the whole like, we want you to come here but legally line anymore. They actually kind of just like want their own country. I think we lost John. Well, looks like oh, there we go.
He's back.
Real.
He's back.
We're so bad. We're so bad.
Yeah, are you good, John?
What's up?
Are you good?
Yes.
You
All right,
cut
good.
out for a moment. I was just hitting on essentially that like one of Mike Lee's advisors literally did not know that the tide had turned against supporting legal immigration in so much of the Republican Party.
Yeah, these people literally, I mean, again, they're too busy playing the game. They're too busy doing retail politics, shaking hands, attending dinners. They're just not tapped in. And, for literally decades, you could be a Republican and just repeat those talking points and you'd be applauded for and voted for, and you would get money. So they got real slick at like delivering, those same lines in different ways, but they haven't realized how things have changed. And a lot of them are willing to adapt. They're perfectly willing to adapt and even be ahead of the curve in many cases for what they can be convinced is the future of the party. And if they're nefarious, okay, well, screw them, go work for somebody else. But yeah, I wouldn't write off, playing the game. I would certainly encourage guys to at least try their hand at it before writing it off completely and deciding that, we just have to accelerate the collapse or something.
Yeah, the accelerate the collapse is probably one of the dumbest things that has come around in our sphere, especially just having been to South Africa and meeting actual South Africans who are white and complete liberals. There is a point where it can get extremely bad and they will never get it. And it can get a whole lot worse than what it's like right now. We still have it pretty good here. And just being like, oh, if you just lose for a little bit, eventually you'll win again, is literally cannot be replicated anywhere in history.
Yeah, it's a fundamentally like leftist impulse to think that like literally I'm almost positive that's shit. I'm sorry. I'm not as read up on my communist theory as I was when I was 18 and I thought that I could debate these people out of being like dysgenic. I think it was Lenin who thought that, like, yeah, we can mobilize the masses once they freaking wake up because, like, the material conditions produced by capital will be too bad. And then that, like, never happened. It's like, yeah, dude, you're never going to, like, freaking wake up the people. You don't want the people to be awake. You don't want to go, like, red pill more retarded people. Like, that's, like, the new strategy with, like, media these days is people are like, okay, how do we red pill as many retarded people as possible on issues which used to be reserved for, like, deep, deep, deep dives? Especially with like J stuff. And I mean, we've all seen how that's panned out. So, yeah, accelerationism is dumb. It's just, blowing off steam, you're being edgy. You don't win because you have lost so much. Like, okay, all of our top guys have been put in jail or killed. All of us are broke. Now, my water cooler coworker, he's gonna freaking wake up and he's gonna pick up the crown out of the gutter. And I believe this because I'm like a very smart person. Like, just delusional, dude. It's just completely delusional.
I mean, accelerationism itself, it comes out of a left-wing ideology where initially accelerationism was just the idea that we're going to let the capitalism turn to late-stage capitalism and accelerate the capitalism, and then we get communism. And it's like you're just adopting the same flawed, clearly failing view on it. And it's also, again, like just the trying to appeal to brain dead masses is really not something that is ever going to work. And it's not right wing. It's just not something that you need. The masses, generally, like normal people, are just going to follow the general direction that the natural aristocracy that exists is putting forward. It's why a lot of what I'm trying to do, at least when I'm stepping into Twitter, when I'm posting things, is I'm trying to get people that are intelligent, but they're largely black-pilled and illiberal, and they know a lot of things, but they don't have a very good framework or understanding of America, American history, of what we were as a nation initially, because they've been told by liberals and conservatives that we are just this like eternal progressive Whig history to get to where we are now, that all the ideals we were initially founded with actually, oh, they were all just flawed men. But what they really wanted is society right now. And then you get like a James Lindsay who said, no, they wanted society in the 1990s, not right now, versus a progressive or just a more like normally liberal who's going to say, actually, they totally wanted, they wanted gay pride flags on pot farms, and they definitely wouldn't have supported AR-15s. That's the people who still uphold them on the left. For the most part, the left is now turning away and now just saying all of America needs to be uprooted and destroyed because they no longer need to pretend like they even have any patriotic virtue. But when you can get across to guys who are relatively well-meaning, who do kind of understand it, but they just don't know what to do, they don't have any sense of direction or motivation, they don't understand just what a great nation they're in its history and how they could actually restore it. I think that is really where you need to hit, is that crowd of people that do kind of understand things, can be useful, don't think that there's any hope or purpose.
Real.
And I would
it
say,
sounds like,
oh yeah, go ahead, John.
well, it sounds like you're talking about Vanguardism. Actually, Andrew Isker and CJ Engel did a really good podcast on that. It's like you're never like you said. It's a lot of this is not bottom up; it's top down, and so you've just got to have people who can lead the charge, and then other people will follow. Maybe not all of them, but enough of them.
Oh no, for sure. And I think that is like, if you study like, again, American Revolutionary history, if you study anything really, like any movement that has occurred, it's always been a vanguard. Even the left's movements are like that. Communism has always been done with a vanguard. I don't think that there's a single movement or thing in history that was just pure bottom up. It was always someone who wanted to change, make difference, do something, gets other like-minded people together, works for that, and then eventually the masses will come along once you actually have gotten power, have shown direction, have actually done things. It never starts from the bottom.
Real.
Anyways, John, so any closing thoughts? I guess just like what do you see in the next few years? What do you think like the most important things that we could be doing? Because ultimately, I think a lot of people don't realize that, this is, unless Trump declares himself emperor of America or destroys term limits, he's out in the next few years. What can we do to prepare for that transition, for that time?
again, I hesitate to give advice, but I would say generally speaking, really set aside some time and figure out how you personally are going to get involved at a level that you suspect someday some like 14-year-old would respect and maybe make you their like iPhone 35 lock screen. You know, there's the Charlie Kirk model, that works. There's the Donald Trump model, that works. There's the Stephen Miller model, that works. Your model needs to be something that works. Everybody's got something they can do, not like in an egalitarian sense. So you might be a retard, you might just be completely retarded, that's fine. But in terms of like, okay, you're smart, you want to help, I'm sure that you have some kind of skill set that overlaps with some kind of interest. Like there's certainly something you can do, but I would say figure that out and figure that out very quickly because yeah, we're 3 years out from it being all up for grabs again, and Trump's only been around for 10 years. I don't know that you can really disinfect the GOP juggernaut, which is a good word, in 10 years. Like a lot of people who are, you know, gatekeeping young guys right now are going to retire or be dead. We need like the millennial leadership class. We need like the Zoomer leadership class. Even I'm aging myself. I can't even believe it. We need the Unk leadership class because yeah, somebody is going to fill those vacuums, and we need it to be patriots because it's going to be somebody. It can't be leftists, and it really should not be people who don't get it, you know, theater kids, whatever you want to call them. It needs to be patriots. So if you're a patriot, figure out how that's you. If you have a college degree, consider law school. You never went to college, consider going. Go to a community college, transfer. Like that stuff actually is important. You know, you don't need it to make a salary or whatever, but it is a good indicator to people working in politics that you've got a little bit of forethought. You can stay committed to a project for, you know, enough time. Like that is a good sort of barometer. And then too, if you're, you know, on a college campus, you're in proximity to patriots, you got your TPUSAs, your CRs, you're in law school, you're going to be meeting very high quality people. A lot of whom are very based, though. I've heard murmurs. A lot of them are like fucking retard. There's like unironic Hananiah's fans and like Spencerites, like in the year of our Lord 2025. So I don't know how that's happening, but in any case, yeah, figure out what your personal plan to get involved is and accelerate that. And if you don't know, get in proximity to patriots. Go to the events. Wear the suit and tie. Do the LARP. That is the most important thing by far.
All right. We've got a couple of super chats, and they're from Dylan. So for $25, he just wrote subscribe. So thank you, Dylan. And these are over on Entropy. And for $10, Dylan has said, if this podcast doesn't have 100K concurrent listeners in a year, I'll be very disappointed. Now, Dylan has mentioned that he is John Doyle's top guy. So we appreciate your super chats. Thank you very much, Dylan.
Thank you, Patriot.
All right, gentlemen. Before we close tonight, Mr. Doyle, do you have anything that you would like to plug or shill before we wrap up?
Yeah, you can find me at youtube.com/John Doyle, where I regularly and consistently post content. You can follow me on Twitter at Comrade Doyle. Yes, never surrender.
Perfect. I got all those links in the description as well as you can find all of the panel tonight. All their links are in there. If you're looking to join OGC chapter, if you're North Carolina, you can apply to the Nathanael Green Society. If you're outside of North Carolina, go on and go to that link in the description and shoot the Old Glory Club an email. Anyway, gentlemen, before we close out tonight, do y'all have any final thoughts?
No?
Yeah, I could throw out one thing. I can always talk a little bit more if you're going to throw the mic out there. Essentially, just again, I want to reiterate for everyone who is still listening, just proximity to patriots, man. When you actually get like a group of guys that are solid together, it is life changing. It is so good to have. I look forward to the Nathanael Green Society meetings more than almost anything else that I have going on. And it's not to say that I'm not a busy person or I have nothing in my life, but it's just so fun to have, you know, dozens of young, patriotic, motivated men who are intelligent, who get it, that you can be around and just talk, to share ideas, to work on projects together. It is one of the best things that you can have going for you. And so if you are like that, if that's someone that you're at, if you're in North Carolina, especially, join NGS. If you're unfortunate enough not to live in the Old North State, find an Old Glory Club chapter, join that.
Great. Also, speaking of the Old Glory Club, head on over to their YouTube channel after the stream. We do have our president and one of our other officers on the chapter house. Actually, it's on right now. So go on over there. Put a link in the comments. So go on over there, watch that, drop a hello in the chat. And yeah. Thank y'all so much. And Mr. Doyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for having me.